Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Welcome to Guitar Gavel Podcast number 5 with Wyatt Abrashinsky. I'm David Still, and we are happy to have Wyatt here with us today. In our case, this evening, super pumped. Wyatt's got a very unique guitar story as he is a guitar tech, among other things, and amp tech. He's going to get into all of that and let us know all the things he can repair, fix, so on and so forth. But we'll kind of jump right in. Wyatt, thanks so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate your time, first and foremost, and look forward to this conversation.
Thanks a lot, David. Let's kick off some questions.
Yeah, man, let's do it. So my easy lead in that, and it kind of takes care of itself from there in many ways, man. Like it's a podcast about guitar. So let's talk about, when did you first start playing, or what was your first guitar? What was your first guitar experience? And you just go.
Sure. Well, the way I got into the guitar is completely wacky, but basically, like my dad and his, I guess, childhood friend, they were hanging out, having like a pool party, drinking some beers and getting stupid, or kind of hanging out outside. And gosh, I had to be like 13 or something, 12 or 13. And he's like, hey, you have a guitar, right? Because my mom had a guitar up in the closet. It was like a 2000s Alvarez. I could smell the guitar though. I could smell like the cedar top and everything. It's such a bizarre guitar. But guitar was so foreign to me. So I went upstairs and got it and pulled it out, and he started playing Stairway on it. And I'm just thinking to myself, and I was like, and this guy he's drunk as a skunk, and he's playing this good. He sounds great. It sounds beautiful. I bet I could do better, just as, somebody who's sober and narrow. And at that time too, we as in my twin brother and I, were playing in the orchestra for a long time, and I played violin for about 10 years. And it wasn't getting the girls, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't my thing. And I love classical music even to this day, but I wanted to move on. I wanted to progress past that. And so after I went upstairs and brought the guitar upstairs, I think I stayed up all night, but probably 8 hours through the night, just thumbing around on the guitar, just pluck with my thumb, one finger, and just kind of exploring the instrument. And it was like this beautiful, euphoric kind of wow, discovery moment. So in total, I guess I've been playing for about 11 or 12 years this year, but I guess it doesn't show through my playing. I've been practicing very much lately, but yeah. And go ahead, David.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. So you had like a legit aha moment, man.
Yeah, it was like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I want to do. And that dream, is still today, 27 years old. And that's what I want to do every day, is play guitar. I spend about 2 or 3 hours every day playing guitar and make it a mission. And I don't think, apart from 2 vacations or something where I didn't bring a guitar or so, I bought a guitar on my travels, that I've missed a day of playing, even being sick or something. I just play. So
that's fascinating. And it says a lot about that night when you started plucking on the guitar, and that you stayed up way past your bedtime in your room playing on it, determined. You'd already set your mind to what you were going to do. It speaks a lot to your personality. We know how the rest of this is going to go almost after that statement.
Yeah, that's the weirdest story I've been dying to tell. It's so bizarre that nobody would kind of believe it. This drunk cronies, rocking Stairway, but it really did shape me for what I wanted to do, especially rock and roll, because at first that's not where it was at. So when I started getting into classic rock and things like that a few years ago, and I do mean 4 or 5 years ago is when I started really immersing myself, collecting vinyl and things like that, really taking music seriously. that moment really made a lot of sense. But yeah, I guess you could say the Alvarez was my first guitar then. Before that, my mom had bought me an electric guitar when I was in the 6th grade, 5th grade, at elementary schoolish.
Yeah.
Uh, we had a friend and he was trying to get into guitar. So my mom took me to a local store and got me an Ibanez Geo. That's a DX 170. So that was technically my first guitar. She still says it's hers, but I chopped it up. I threw an EMG in there. This thing it's rocked now. But yeah, it was like a violet, purple, blue with a floating trem. Wasn't quite like an Edge or a Floyd Rose, but it's kind of like a Fender on a block thing. But gosh, I was terrible at it.
Everyone's terrible when you start out. I mean, you can be terrible for a long time too, right. So, all right. So from the Ibanez, did that last very long, or did you kind of, for lack of a better expression, grow out of it pretty quickly?
Well, like because there was a long gap between then and then playing like the acoustic. So I kind of fondled around with the acoustic and more or less floundered through it because I was so awful and just, pluck. I was really into like just, this terrible position. And my friends make fun of me because I used to, like a chicken wing, pinch harmonic. But yeah, so I was just doing that on the acoustic. But, had I had the knowledge I do now with old blues technique and things like that, I play with my thumbs at banjo rolls, but you don't know that when you're getting into it. So once I started learning chord progressions and got past the finger pains and the stretching and things like that, the acoustic became irrelevant to me. Like I loved acoustic and I played that for a solid year before electric. But then I heard sounds and I heard pedals and I was like, ooh, like Tim Allen has that old, comedy stand-up thing. It's like, oh,
yeah.
You see some tools. So I'm kind of like, yeah, ooh. When I heard Hendrix and like the wah stuff. And okay. So I would play the Geo for a little bit, and I was really into metal. Like it was high school era then at this point. So I just wanted a different way to express myself, let out that anger, let out that teenage angst. And I found comfort in metal. My parents were starting to separate and things like that too. So it became like a way to hide, a way to like manifest the tenseness of the situation. So my first girlfriend when I was like 14, 15, whatever, she got me a Crybaby to go with my thing. And that was huge because it's like, oh my God, you got your parents to spend like $60 on a Dunlop. I have like 30 in my shop that are broken right now in a pile like this. I try to hand them out to all my friends and clients. I'm like, hey, do you want to take a walk? But I actually still have that wah, and I've broken it and rebuilt it millions of times. It's one of my favorite things. But yeah, once I got into like effects and heard that and I was playing metal, probably not familiar, but like Machine Head was probably one of the first metal bands I was into. And just hearing like, oh man, drop B and that wah effect and the chorus effect and things like that, like you can incorporate this into metal. And it just became an obsession, tuning down and thick strings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like a few, I'm not sure if my brain's making up things, but I think the next guitar I got after that was a Epiphone Les Paul, like the LP 100. It was like the terrible cherry top with the terrible humbuckers and the terrible board. I asked for a Les Paul for Christmas and they got me that. So
you're not the only one that has that story.
Yeah. So yeah. I was like, why wouldn't they give me a Les Paul? You dogged me on an Epiphone. Even at that, I was playing for like 2 years at that point, and I still knew, had I known that Epiphone had such a rich history, I wouldn't have been so, snarky about it. But took it seriously. And then my mom one day, she's like, I'll get you one present. Like we'll go to 2 guitar stores, like Guitar Center, and we had another store in New Jersey here. And she's like, look, you have like a $200 budget. So it came between a Jackson Dinky in red with a Floyd, which I'm
Mhm.
glad I didn't get because I would have trashed that thing. And Ibanez RG 120, which I ended up keeping for like a good solid 8 years until I swirl dipped it, and it just fell apart because once I create something, I don't like playing it for some
Yeah.
reason. So yeah, and that Ibanez, it played better than the Geo because it had that nice thin profile, and the INF humbuckers, and it sounded great. So I had that thing in drop C, and man, I was going to town and learning songs every day. It was terrible, but that was that. And not to go on a run on here, but the defining moment for guitar for me then was like when I knew this is what I want to do. I saw a 7 string, and I was into Corn. My friends were into Corn, and like Fear Factory and some of those industrial metal bands, and post or like post grunge, I guess, new metal. And there was a Ibanez 7 string, 7321 at Guitar Center for like $200. Still have the receipt. I asked my grandpa for the money. I was like, please loan me this money so I can get this thing. And it came with the hard shell case and everything. It was beautiful though. And yeah, that was awesome. When I got that, that was like an extra string. Do you know what I can play with this? And it's like, it's weird because these moments coming back to them, like I'm not only emotional, but like I can smell the guitar. I can like feel like the euphoria around like picking it up and feeling that extra string and like the possibilities. It's like your brain can't process 5 extra notes basically. So that was
You should almost journal that, man. It's those memories are pretty vivid and you describe them well, but in 30 years that may not be the case. It might be worth just kind of jotting down. So, I mean, for you, you have a unique angle being a tech. So describe how you got started in that. We were talking offline beforehand. Your brother's very mechanically inclined. I mean, obviously, I would read it. You guys are engineer minded. You're tinkerers, so there's some of that is innate in you, in your DNA. But talk about how that process started.
Yeah, well, the teching thing became that's a product of necessity, I would say, more or less. Being in college, being broke, and I have like an authority complex. Anything I worked, I didn't really enjoy gigs and tiny jobs. Just working under people, it bothered me. And my stepdad had been in the business. He had the business of repairing amps and guitars and building and doing a whole bunch of things. He's a woodworker. He's an electrical engineer. He's just a genius and very multifaceted. And in the beginning, we didn't bond. He would be like, "Yeah, your 7 string's great, but have you heard of Les Paul? And do you know what a humbucker does?" And he had like big half stacks. Like I still have it. It's a Fender Dual Showman that belonged to Greg Howe, and a big 412. And then I plugged my 7 string through it, and I was like, it sounds like a fart, Yeah, he's like, yeah, but you don't appreciate what this is. So it was just years and years of this strife and this, friction, where I wasn't understanding what he was saying, but the message was very clear. Go back and relearn what you're doing. If you want to be a musician, not just a guitarist, you need to understand electronics. You need to understand, microphones and dynamic patterns. You need to understand sound. And sound is not just something you hear, it's something you feel and see and taste. And it became this like extra sensory thing. So I was like, transitioned from community college to a regular 4-year, and wasn't really doing much beyond just wasting time in school and playing in bands with the guys. My twin brother and my best friend. We were like a 3-man band and just doing gigs and having fun in the summer. But I needed money and needed to do something with my life. So I decided to start running gear for my stepdad. And like he'd have, this amp has to go back to so-and-so. This amp has to go to so-and-so. So-and-so called me. Can you pick it up? And so I became like the errand boy, kind of like the shuttle. So I would go with my brother and I'd pick up the heavy amp, carry it back to the car, bring it back. And then, he would tinker. My stepdad would tinker on it and whatever, and be like, sometimes like an orange or a mesa would come in, something I'm interested in. Like,
Yeah.
I like the high gain. So when those would come in, I'd be like, fix it, Mike, fix it, please, so I can play on it, and I would play on people's stuff. So that's how the gear obsession. I would just have immense amounts of amplifiers and guitars at my disposal that I could just try out, and when they were fixed up, I had until they were returned and to play on them. And that's really where it started. It was just
have you ever has a client ever called, asking where their gear equipment was, and you're like, and it's done, but you're enjoying it, and you're like, it's it's about a week out.
Good information. No, I think more or less, yeah. In the old days, though, when I was working under my dad, I was very secretive, and I would withhold the repairs and stuff, especially if I had an orange in or something, because they're my favorite amps, and I'm absolutely obsessed. So I wanted to hold on to something as long as I could, and to be fair to some of my clients and friends listening and things like that too, in the future, sure. A lot of them are very, very kind, amazing people that come out of the woodwork when you need them, and they don't mind. They don't mind waiting for the stuff, and they don't mind boogering it up just to experiment too. People are kind. We're all musicians, and I do the same thing with somebody else. Let them borrow my guitars or amps if they wanted to try something responsibly, and
Cool. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but and everyone knows you're a nice guy at this point, Wyatt. So they understand if it's 3 extra days, it's 3 extra days.
Yeah, well, my dad always said, you want good work done cheap, you're gonna wait, and if you want the work done good and fast, you gotta pay the rate, really. And I still operate that way. It goes beyond a business. It's a lifestyle. I guess personality plays a lot into it, and musicians play a lot into it, and it's so mutual. It's an intimate experience, really, because you're sharing like this vulnerable part of yourself, whether it's an instrument, something you've bonded with somebody else, and I really care what they have to say. But sometimes people are harsh and they just want their stuff fixed. But for the most part, I like to take the time, and mostly if you wait and stuff, you get the good discount, and
there you
go. I just don't charge at all. So
well, and I kind of derailed your earlier thoughts, so forgive me. So you're talking about your journey into growing from running gear to the amps that came in that you appreciated,
right,
and that was sparking your interest. I take it from there.
Yeah, so running it back and forth, eventually I got to know the store owners really well, and I got to know some of the clients when they would stop by, some of my dad's friends, and lifelong clients, really. And hey, do you ever pay attention to what he's doing, or things like that? Or they would have questions, or my I don't know, my dad is very private and very laid back, so sometimes I would have to be the face of the company. So we would run something back, and they would have a question about a guitar, or somebody came in asking about this amp. Can you work on this? And through those experiences, and then relating it to my dad, like anytime it'd be like, oh, can you work on an active speaker? Can you work on my line 6? My dad would be like, and just get upset until I learned that those things aren't serviceable, and so on. And then it clicked, and I'm like, okay, but then why isn't it serviceable? And why can't you fix it? Why is this expensive to fix? And so on. And that inquisitive nature, I guess, was nourished by him, nourished by the environment. And I don't feel like it's gone, but there comes a point where so much that also it becomes monotonous. And I think that monotony burns you out. I have a couple of friends in the industry right now who have kind of more or less burned out, my dad including. And it's definitely a difficult job in that regard too. I think everybody needs a break, and there's been several times I've quit and stopped the business. But now I'm starting to realize that it's okay to take a break, and people aren't going to, nothing's going to and the world's not going to end because I need to take a day to myself or take the week to do something different. So
It's not. Take care of yourself first.
yes, that's important, folks. Listen to that.
All right. So through that, to kind of go on, that led into guitars, too. And then within the context of that, as you get to it, we were talking again offline before, a lot of guitars have come.
Oh yeah.
Through your hands. So.
Yeah. About 110 at this point. Yeah, I do have a hidden list, but details are, I try to keep it private for other people's sake. And just, I don't think gear acquisition is always in the eye of the beholder. I think everybody has a different set of ethics. Whereas I've seen people acquire guitars in this industry in nasty ways. I don't believe in lowballing. I have been, I guess, for lack of a better word, victim to plots where it's been pinned against me and resulted in my termination from Guitar Center of, buying gear in the parking lot and things like that. But it's not for resale. People don't adhere to the collection idea. They just see dollar signs. And for me, if somebody has a passion piece that, for instance, they have a 1971 Fender and they'll give it to you for $100 because you love it and you can work on it and take care of it. And you're going to hold on to it, pass to your kids, that's a story. And to me, that's important. And I hold on to things like that. What's to say, you can make 100 quick bucks if you fix it and turn it around, that's somebody else's prerogative. And it's become one of those things too, because it's hard when I think of like where I began, not just servicing, but also restorations and consignments and flips. That gets a little hairy.
Yeah.
It's a little fuzzy.
So what then describe some of the favorites, either that you've had or that have passed through your hands that was a repair job.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of cool, weird stuff. Like a 90s Strat Plus was one of my oddball favorites, just that big baseball bat neck with the stainless steel frets. I've had like a 71 Gibson I got from a gentleman that was just unbelievable. And it was all refinished. I had like the Vibramate or whatever, the little trem on it. It was just like a regular standard bridge off a Fender Mustang, I think. It's just like strung it up like a string through, Gibson style, like instead of the Tune-O-Matic. So there's like a lot of weird chop shop things I've had. I've let go of a lot of my personal collection. Any of the guitars I talked about, like the Ibanez 7-string, the RG-120, like anything that was instrumental in my growth, I would say I've learned and basically gotten rid of, used it to get to a certain point, and then I'm like, okay, but I need something that's gonna, like, I don't know, help me get to the next step.
Right, of course.
One of the guitars, a weird phenomenon, and actually this is good for your questions here, but one of the guitars I had that really changed my perspective, because I got into extended range very early, and I went from 7-string to 8-string to 9-string guitar. That's vertically, not with like the extra octave strings on an acoustic. Because I just wanted to be guttural and heavy, and I just wanted to make something nasty, gross music. And
yes,
the 9-string was great for that. But I had an Ibanez RG 2228 in Galaxy Black Pearl, and that was my grandfather also gifted that to me for a birthday. He said, go pick out whatever you want at a Music Go Round franchise up here in like Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area. And wow, that guitar changed me for some reason. It was the first high quality extended range guitar, the pizza thin neck. I mean, it was incredible. And it had like looked like a Floyd Rose, like an edge, but it didn't have anything. And it had like locking tuners, but no bar slot. So this thing was a nasty instrument. And I know it's a prototype from like 2007 or 8, but that guitar made me realize that there are higher quality instruments and different tiers and levels to this game, and put me in the position where I am now, where I'm always seeking not just like this upper echelon, because I've had Sir Tom Anderson. I just sold my Sir custom shop, you name it, and basically everything except the Rudy Pensa. But yeah, that was the defining moment, and it's also the one that got away because I sold it hastily. I was just, I wanted something different, cashed out on it, ended up buying it, the same one I had again from a kid in Ohio, and then got it back in my hands and I was like, it's not the same.
Oh
So
man.
I would also say like people who are like getting into it or who care about their guitars or, or even thinking about getting rid of ones, like really evaluate the moment you got that guitar, why you got that guitar. Was it a significant other or a partner who got it for you, or, family? Was it something you worked all summer for, cutting lawns? And, I think regret is a big part of this, my side of the industry thing too. They're like, there's a lot of gear and guitars and amps that got away from me. And a lot of times I should have asked people, hey, are you sure you want to get rid of this? Because I do fix a lot of stuff. And then I see it at Guitar Center a week later. And kind of a gut punch, you're willing to spend that time and money and you see it up for sale. So,
I mean, I can't relate in terms of fixing and repair, but the emotional connection, and that's really insightful. And I hate to interrupt your flow. It's insightful because you're suggesting to that person you have a connection or a bond to the instrument, which they likely realize, but you're kind of asking them to put themselves on a shelf, look at their thoughts, and reevaluate it from a different lens. Because it's easy. Many of us are connected to our instruments, or all of our instruments, some more so than others. But you're describing kind of a sixth sense to it,
right.
Where it's, hey, take a moment and pause. And then, I mean, it's one thing if you just like flat out need cash. I mean, that's a kind of a different story. But if it's just you think you're on to the next one, or you're going to get the next level up, if you have this connection to it, it's going to haunt you. I mean,
I mean, anything. You sell your car and you miss your first car or something. You know what I mean? I think if
yeah, of course, but you can't. Yes, just because of all the memories you had in your first car. But it's probably not one you can actually hold on to for most people. Yeah,
right. But it's that the sentiment, and I've gotten rid of countless gear. I mean, I've surpassed even like realizing what position I bought the things with. I record the names in an Excel and what guitar I've owned and the price I paid and things like that for my own records. But it's hard to even think of where I was in life. And, that even can mirror why you're getting rid of things. Like you said, oh yeah, you need money or whatever. I was just growing. I was going, changing my mind all the time. And where I was in life really does reflect the instruments I bought. When I was pissed off, when I was broke, I was buying 8 strings and 9 strings and custom guitars and things that I could be heavy with and express myself with. Like, we went out to Los Angeles with our family, flew my brother and I out, and we had like $500 between us. And I went to Guitar Center Hollywood, big mistake, and I saw a fan fret, the multi-scale 8-string Ibanez, and I spent all my money for the week there on that, and just we ate nothing, but I was like, it was worth it. And then I ended up selling it when I got home. You have to think like that desperation or something makes you do silly stuff. But I don't know. For me at this point, I keep everything my girlfriend gives me, and I keep everything my family has given me, and something I want to hold on to and pass down to my kids one day. Like Jazz Master and I gave my Strat to my friend Dimitri. Shout out to you. He was in a band called Rookie out in Chicago. But I had a Strat reissue, 62 reissue made in Japan that I've been playing for years. And I just sent it out to him because, I mean, there are people who just deserve it. And that's a good segue too. Like, there comes a point when you have too much, David, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you have this, I guess, mental shift where it's, hey, I got to start lightening the load, but it's also like a mental cleansing. And for me, I try to evaluate out of my friends, you know, who is the most deserving. I mean, this kid's playing a Squire and things like that, and he's touring around the country. He's a great guy. So here you go. I just sent it to him, and that was that. And you know, I hope he enjoys it. Hope he watches this. But you know, it's one of those things too, where I want people to have the things that I guess have made me feel good, or they can continue that legacy. I like stories with gear. That's one of my number one sucker punches. If I see a story on like Reverb where somebody's like, "Oh, I'm in dire straits, but this is the story of this chopped up Fender," it's like, and then I feel compelled to really get it because I feel like I'm passing the torch and holding on to something. It has energy to it.
Yeah, well, I completely agree, man. Like it's just every to me, my perspective, and why I love guitars is each one has a soul.
Mm-hmm.
They have a soul of every owner. And depending on how far you want to go, like the actual guitar has its own soul.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that story and it's the expression of of used guitars of the former owner's soul that is it's one, it's part of that being, and it's what you can derive energy from.
Exactly.
I mean, it's poetic, but that's how I perceive
Oh,
it.
but it's true. And you have to think, you know, you can, you know, hippy dippy, but I mean, you have to think that the wood of the guitar was actually a living thing at one time and so on. And I try to honor those things when I'm picking something, even just the year of the guitar, what happened in that year of the world and so on. Jazzmaster, I just bought, you know, 1994, a year before I was born. And to have a guitar so close to my existence, my life, it just feels special. And it's broken in, you know, 28, 27 years. There's some energy there, and it can transfer. It definitely, if you allow it, it can transfer to your playing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny since I say it's funny. You are in a particular situation. Now I'm taking us in the weeds here. So we'll get back on track. In many ways, because of your skill and your expertise and your ability, you're like a custodian, man. Like you're like a guard. And I don't. Do you ever? I guess where I'm going with that. Do you ever think of yourself, or when gear's in your possession, that is actually the case? Like, I have the skill set, I can apply it to this instrument, make it better, give it some love, and then pass it on. Do you ever look at it that way?
Yeah, at every repair I do, I'll give you two quick examples so we get back on track. But one, I was working for a gentleman over the summer. My dream guitar has always been a Jazzmaster, and it was one of my dad's friends. So somebody you know through, you know. Yeah. And he came over, an old smoky voice and raspy, and just an old soul guy, you know, really nice. And I fixed up his guitars. I was nervous. I was shaking like a leaf because you never know who your clients are going to be and how particular they are. You have to get to know these people before you start working on their stuff so you can identify with them. And, you know, through that, we labor traded. He actually had a 1963 Fender Jazzmaster, you know, for when he was a kid learning guitar. And it was chewed up, but I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I couldn't hold on to what it was because it's so far from the identity that I wanted. I wanted like a pristine, you know, if I'm going to buy something vintage or whatever, I want it completely pristine. So I ended up making it the best I absolutely could, and then left the story out there. And I'm still friends with the guy I sold it to, you know, but that's one instance where you have to let that energy go. And every time I work on like an old black face or a silver face Fender or something, if I do mods, anything on those, and I'm doing complete restoration, I always sign the inside and date it and stuff. What, you know, if some kid 20 years from now becomes the next me, that's awesome. And he gets to see the work and understands that lineage between things, because somebody was sitting in a factory 50, 60 years ago, putting that together and put their time and energy into it, and it's signed, and you got all the yellow chalk all over you from the Fender. But, you know, I'd like to be the shepherd of gear. Does it necessitate like holding on to things? You know, everybody's got to pay bills and things like that too. But yeah, for the most part, I always like to be that. It gives you a certain rush, I guess, when you get to be that person people select to say, hey, you know, this is going to be the next thing. And then I get to decide what happens with that, with positive energy and hopefulness. And otherwise I just end up keeping things too. So
dude, that's really cool, man. Great perspective. Well, I know you've got a couple to talk about, so why don't we just jump right in? You've got an electric and acoustic. Yeah, man. And you just take it from here. Cause because
I'll just pull them on over.
Yeah, man. When you come back, I'm going to have you full screen.
Okay. You can full screen. So this is my 1999-2000 Fender American Telecaster made in the Corona plant. And it's just a 3-tone, nothing special, nothing's upgraded, stainless steel saddles and the big barrel knobs. The action's a little higher because I play with 9s, but higher action. And then it's got checking all over the lacquer, the neck that's sealed, bumps and bruises. This is my main guitar. This is the only guitar I own in my apartment next to my acoustic. And I'm going to die with this guitar. There's just something so special about it. And I don't know. I'm a Telecaster guy through and through. I've had about 20 of them so far. And this is the only one that's stayed through my collection. So I will go retrieve my other guitar. Gotta break everything off my walls. And this is just a Martin DX2 Koa. Nothing special, just a laminate. And it sounds pretty resonant. A little trebly, because I have to play with thinner strings. I just can't get on with the standard 12s and 13s on acoustics, so I play with 11.5s. And I have Martin Silken Steels because I like to do a lot of finger picking, really into Lindsey Buckingham and Jimmy Page. So you'll catch me playing this pretty much every second that I'm not plugged into something. I probably annoy too many people, but that's all I have to show and tell.
No, and I'm going to bring us back together here. So it's fascinating. How have, going back to the 8 and 9 strings and the Ibanez's, and then you're showing us a Tele, right? So like, and you're still a young guy, but I'm stumbling through this question. So your tastes have changed to some extent, or you have found your voice in a Tele.
Mm-hmm.
Give us the backstory there. I'm curious.
Well, the paradigm shift between metal and what got me into rock is that's probably like I found my identity maybe like 5-6 years ago. My twin brother and my best friend and I were playing in a 3-piece garage rock band. We really liked like the Black Keys and Arctic Monkeys, and we wanted to do the whole, let's just sound as crappy as we can and just be rock and roll, because the metal stuff didn't work for us. We gigged, and our last show was in like 2016, 2017. We just couldn't construct the songs we wanted to. We were too poor to afford the production and gear that we could get the sounds and production value, I suppose, depending on what label you listen to and things like that. Just certain bands just have a punch. And I was playing through an orange Dark Terror 15 watt with my 8-string Ibanez 8-string, and I was like, So we eventually kind of gave up on that and wanted to say, hey, let's play rock and roll and things like that. So I was using my dad's Gibson at the time, playing his 57 reissue Fender. And I just was really sick one year. I had like bronchitis and pneumonia at the same time. And I was so bedridden, but my brother wanted to go to a guitar store. He's like, let's just sneak out. And I was like, okay. And there was a red Telecaster sitting in the garbage there, just totally taken apart, beat the crap. It was a 2004 Candy Apple Red Mexican, but I saw that in my eyes. It was just like, oh my gosh, like a real Fender in the trash. What is this? I had no interest, and I was probably gonna like tune it down anyways. I ended up taking it home, and I was like, a new Muse song came out that was in like he tunes to a low C like John Mayer, but everything else is in standard. So I started riffing on it. And man, this thing sounds great. So eventually, I was like, wow, you don't have to have 7, 8, or 9 strings or drop tune to really have that grit, to have that punch, which is something my dad had been telling me the whole time. No, he's like, this old gear can actually make your good sounds, but you got to understand what tone is. And that was really where I started. I was like, well, not every Telecaster has to be a country Telecaster. It doesn't have to have a twang to it. I don't know what is in the pickup. It was just so crusher. And that guitar I've had for the longest amount of time. I ended up parting it out and giving it to a friend who's an artist, local artist, and for his kid to learn, just pass it on. So yeah, that was really the shift for me to like the Fenders and Gibsons, where I was like, all right, we're getting our trashy sound. We're playing through crappy combo amps. We're playing cheap Fenders with light strings and getting like this nasty grit. And yeah, I haven't turned back since. Fender has always been my brand. I think it's an undying dream of mine to be an endorsed artist and have a signature model. It's going to be some weird offset Tele Jazzmaster hybrid with, I love humbuckers in the neck and single coils in the bridge.
You've already got this thing designed out, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for them any day. It's going to be chambered. I'm ready.
Sweet.
Yeah. Whenever they want to come to me, let me know.
Dude, all right. So a couple more questions, or really one more question. Bucket list guitar. Do you have one?
Yeah, the Ibanez, that like the 8-string one I was talking about previously. It's the 2228M. So it's basically the white 8-string with a maple fingerboard. And that has just eluded me forever. When I could have gotten my hands on it, I was way too broke. Anytime I've seen one now, they're really chopped up. I think that would be the only extended rate, like, I don't know, because I like baritone, but probably be the only 8-string, 7-string, 9-string elk that I would have. It's just a beautiful guitar, and I know Ibanez has made a couple other maple fingerboard ones, but I'm not in it for that. It's just what it was and what it meant to me. One of my favorite bands, one of the guitarists who passed away, he used to play one, had a signature one, and it's always been my dream to have that. And I think I would probably play that every single day if I had that.
That's cool, man. Well, it'll happen at some point.
It will.
I mean, it's like guaranteed. Just got to wait your time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how that works. Dude, Wyatt, this has been a blast. Before we bail, where can folks find you if they wanted to say I've got the RG 2228M, or B, want to talk to you about some mods or some repairs?
Sure. Well, the only ways to really reach me on social media, my Instagram is Wyatt Plays Guitar. So I've monopolized that easy tag, I guess. And the LinkedIn, my name, Wyatt Abrashinsky. Just search me up. And I've more or less tailored my LinkedIn to be like my business front. And you can just message me there privately, go from there. I'd like to give out my phone number, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they can DM you there. Yeah, man, no problem.
DM me there.
Dude, that is perfect. I hope we didn't leave anything on the table. If we left anything on the table, we good.
No, I could talk for like 2 more hours or 4.
We'll do that offline, man. This is perfect. Wyatt, thanks so much, man, for your time.
Thank
Really
you, Dave.
appreciate it. So great connecting with you, and kind of looking forward to our new friendship and what our time, over the next however many years will look like, dude. This is great. So thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate it. And it's great to put a face to the name,
Man, same to you. Same to you as well. Hold on one second. I'm going to click us out, man, and I'll let us know when we're done. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you back next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Guitar Gavel podcast, and a special thanks to Steve Kuykendall for composing this music and being such the great guy and friend that you are. As a reminder, hit the subscribe button and sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com.